police chiefs believe that it is time to reduce the amount of alcohol people are allowed to drink before getting behind the wheel. Currently, the legal limit in England, Wales and Northern Ireland is 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood, which means, depending on your size, you could have 1 or 2 pints of beer. However, in Scotland, it is at just 50 milligrams per 100 millilitres of blood, meaning you can have 1 pint or a glass, 1 pint rather, could put you over the limit. So should the rest of the UK follow Scotland, or is it time to actually say you just can't drink anything before driving? Nina, I mean, you have sort of personal experience with this sort of thing. I remember you telling me a story a while ago, and you would say just a zero tolerance approach is best.
I would say zero tolerance approach is best because, you know, they say just to have one drink. What is the point of one drink? I don't understand it. But as you say, I had a personal experience of this. I mean, this is back in the early 80s, so many, many years ago. I was a journalist in Fleet Street. I went to a reception where they were launching a movie called Educating Rita with Julie Walters. It was hilarious. Everybody was drinking, blah, 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 blah. And I came outside, I got into my car and I started to drive home. Now, I am entirely, and was at the time, entirely ashamed of this. But I just want to say that at the time, drink driving was not, we didn't...
As big a taboo?
No, it wasn't nearly as big a taboo. And people, there were many people did it, and particularly in the countryside, although I was in the town. I crashed my car in, there's a curve that comes round by a broadcasting house, and I crashed my car into a parked car as I came round the bend. Fortunately, I didn't damage any other human being, and I didn't damage myself. I damaged both cars. Yeah. So I was arrested, breathalyzed, and then went to court and was banned for driving for a year and paid £120 in costs. And that taught me my lesson. I've never driven with a drop of alcohol in my blood since.
And I wonder whether, you know, your height makes a difference, your weight makes a difference, whether you're male or female makes a difference, Mike. I wonder whether just saying a zero tolerance approach makes it really simple for everyone to understand how much you can have to drink before you get behind a wheel. Nothing.
Yeah, I can't agree with that, because I think that the whole essence of the 1 pint is, if you're in the country, so you're driving from town to your home in the country, you stop at your local pub, you can have a pint and socialise for 15 or 20 minutes over that pint and then go out and get in your car and drive safely home. And the one thing that rural landlords are worried about is bringing that level below 1 pint, because under these proposed rules, it would be about half a pint. Nobody would bother stopping for half a pint. It's just not worth it, because, as Nina says, you might as well go home and have a drink. But it's the social aspect of spending 15 or 20 minutes there. Now,
but your argument then is to put lives at risk because you want to save a pub.
No, you're not putting lives at risk, because they're still they're under the drink drive limit. Now, when you see, I don't quite understand this legislation. Oh, we're going to bring it down because more drives are being caught over the drink drive limit. But the drink drive limit is what it is at the moment, and the people who are doing the drinking and driving are drinking well in excess of that, not just over it, well in excess of it.
Could it also be just confusion, I suppose, is what I'm getting at, because a pint for you, Mike, would probably be very different for a pint for me. I would never get in my car and drive after a pint of beer because I know that my tolerance level just wouldn't sustain that. Not everybody will be making that kind of decision. Some people will just say, well, I'm allowed to have a pint, so I'll just get in the car.
No, if you're a responsible male and you've been driving all your life, you know that your safety limit is 1 pint. Don't go over that. You should know that, and you should do that. And by the way, what Nina said about 1980s, drink driving was almost like the litter laws. People so unobserved them. I'd come out of the Daily Express in Fleet Street and there would be 6 reporters' cars parked on the curb in Fleet Street, you know what I mean, on the road. And they'd come out the Popinjay after a session of 2 hours, get in them and drive home. It happened all the time. So I'm very glad it's been clamped down upon. Very, very glad. But I think this is too onerous.
But see, the thing is, it's an arbitrary limit that's been set, and it's different, as you say, for different people, different body size, body weight, tolerance to alcohol. And the thing is, nobody actually knows. You can talk about a pint of beer, but you can also talk about, what's a unit of wine. Everybody thinks that a unit of wine is a glass of wine, but there are different glasses. There are 120.
Is it 175?
Exactly, which is a third of a bottle, basically, practically. So 250 is a third of a bottle.
Yeah.
So, and also, when you've had that one drink, the temptation is just to have the little bit more. Oh, well, I'll just have a little bit more, and because it does, you know, the point about what is the point of drinking? The point of drinking is to alter your senses,
but to socialise as well. On the point I've made,
to socialise, but it alters your senses. It makes you more gregarious. It relaxes you, and the point being that if you have one, you're then tempted that I only had a small glass. I'll have another glass, and then you're stuffed. But as you say, but you were also talking about a responsible driver, presumably you, who's been driving for many years, and you know your tolerance and you know your levels. But obviously there are many young drivers, younger drivers who don't.
I would have a different limit for younger drivers if necessary. You might be right, but not for adults.
All right, let's go to the calls. Phil from Milton Keynes, how do you feel about this? Does there need to be a zero tolerance approach?
Absolutely.
And zero
100%.
alcohol? And zero alcohol, Phil?
Absolutely. I mean, I said to your researchers before I came through that if I know I'm going out with friends or for a meal or whatever and I'm driving, I just will not have a drink. It's just not worth the risk. I need my car to get to work and I can't afford to lose my licence.
But you could have potentially one drink and you wouldn't lose your licence, Phil, because you wouldn't be over the limit. It would be the two drinks.
I just don't want to take that risk. It just, like you say, with your immune system and everything else, some levels are different for everybody else. So I'd just rather be safe than sorry, not have a drink, and I know once I get back in my car, if I was to be pulled over, I would be absolutely fine, and it would be come up as zero.
Well, I mean, but does there have to be a certain level of tolerance given by the police, in the sense that there can be alcohol in things you have no idea about, in medication, there can be alcohol in mouthwash that you use. Also, if you were drinking the night before and you've left it 12 hours, there can still be, depending on your metabolism, alcohol in your system. And these are individuals that might be getting in the car completely unbeknownst to them. They get stopped by the police, and if the police chiefs had their way, which is in the article that was out today, they also want to offer on-the-spot bans for driving. So if you get caught over the limit, and if that was zero, you could have used a different mouthwash that morning and be banned from driving for a year.
I've not thought of that, but yeah, that's a valid point. But yeah, I just wouldn't even consider having a drink if I know I'm getting behind the wheel.
Bill, supposing you were going out for dinner with your wife or a friend or something, and it was a pizza, wouldn't you be able to have a glass of wine, red or white, with your pizza to make it more enjoyable experience without threatening anybody else on the road or yourself?
I just wouldn't feel. One drink, you may be right, but my own personal opinion is, if I'm driving there and back, I'll just have a soft drink and I know I'm fine.
Phil, I totally understand your point.
Absolutely with Phil. I'm absolutely with Phil there.
Also, maybe you've actually put the nail on the head here, Mike, and that is that our whole relationship to alcohol in this country may need fixing, because you've just said in order to go out and enjoy a pizza with your friend or your partner, you should have a glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily, why would you have to have a glass of wine to make the experience more enjoyable?
Well, because it's a meal. And in this country, traditionally, a meal is food and drink,
but maybe we need to change that.
Well, maybe we do, but it'll take a few decades.
I think the younger generation, on the whole, are drinking far less than us. Far less than us old boozers, old boomer boozers. My old feet straight. I like a drink. I like a, espresso martini. I like wine. I like, all sorts of things. But I do not want to drink and drive.
Thank you for your comment.
Can also say that this law's been in for nearly 60 years now and reviewed continually, and still a bridge to be safe for most drivers.
Mary from East Sussex, what's your view on this?
Well, as I started to express earlier, because I had an incident some years ago, and I wasn't drunk, but I'd had a couple of drinks, social drinks, and then I was out, and then driving home, there was a person who was obviously not very well. He was driving at me, and I had to make a very quick decision to get out of his way and avoid a head-on, and whether he was drunk or not, I couldn't say. But I had to turn very, very sharply, and I drove up onto someone's lawn and practically bashed into a tree. So fortunately, I missed everything. But It's just, I think you need to have your completely sharp wits about you and don't have anything that's going to dull your senses. And that's why I feel that way.
Can I ask, Mary? I mean, that's a very similar example to the one Nina gave, and thank goodness on both of your examples you didn't hurt either yourselves or anybody else, apart from maybe the tree and the cars. But Mary, you know, we can plant another tree and cars can be fixed, and that's much easier to deal with. Can I ask, did you know you were over the limit when you got into that car?
No, because I didn't have, like, I think I didn't have more than 2 drinks, and whether that's considered to be over the limit. 2 drinks would be over the limit in this country, and that's sort of what I was going to say, is that if people are not paying attention to the drink drive limits as they are now, what makes us think, even if we take it down to 0, people are going to start listening to them now? I know people get very angry because they don't like being told what to do and having anything limited, but you know, to me, life is very precious. It's the one thing you cannot replace, like any physical item. So I don't want to risk my life, because I think the older I get, the more I realize just how precious it is, and I feel that way about other people's lives as well. So I'd rather not have it.
Mary, thank you very much for your call. Duncan from Argyll and Butte, do you think that, well, you're in an area where they've already reduced it to 15 milligrams per 100 millilitres. Has it worked in Scotland, do you think?
Yeah, good morning, Storm, and good morning, Mike, and other members of the panel. Sorry, I didn't know that, Storm. Well, that's really good news, because, in Scotland, I was watching the Tonight programme the other night, and it was really interesting about how it's cut down, they've cut right down in Britain, and, you know, with a lot of intake and everything. But to get to this, I think, I think it should be 0, because I will go with what Mike said earlier, which he had his place and he was right about. But what I would do if it was me, I've got a friend, Stephen, because me and Stephen both, I get supported by Key, and so does he, and he can drive and so can I. Now, if we were to go for a meal, I'd be happy to drive him somewhere, and then he can have a meal. And we have a kind of agreement who's going to do what.
Designated drivers, Duncan. I think people have been doing it for decades, since cars were invented and alcohol was around. I think we've been designating certain people to drive, certainly since the rules are around. But it's interesting, in Scotland they reduced it back in 2014, and I think the number of casualties on the road caused by drink driving has reduced by 2/3, which is quite substantial. And when you start talking about saving lives, Mike.
Yeah, I do.
Really, why can't you do what Duncan does with his pal Steve and just swap?
I hope people do. I hope they do that. But I still think it's a bit Cromwellian, because we do have a relationship between food and drink in this country. And I get the feeling that, modern governments would like to stop us enjoying ourselves as much as we do. And I think there's an element of that in it. And the other thing...
But there is already a limit, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like saying, because our earlier caller said people just don't like being told what to do. Mary said that. And I think, but we are told what to do. We are already being told what to do.
Yes, but that's in the interest of safety. I mean, I can...
There's zero tolerance and zero drink.
That's absolutely in the interest of safety.
Hang on, I can drive very capably after 1 pint of beer. I know I can.
Not as capably as...
Yes, I can. Well, I've never had an accident when I've had 1 pint of beer, and I've never felt out of control of the car. I think it's a safe and acceptable level for a chap like me, of my body build and all that. And if other people have a different body shape, they've got to adjust it.
But it's interesting when we're making self-analysis on this. And the reason I say that is because, as coming from Glasgow, I'm partial to a night out, and I do like a drink as well. But, when I've had 2 glasses of wine, I think I'm a great dancer. Now, video evidence might have told the contrary.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we're not all that great in analysing ourselves under the influence.
But you can't... I'm sorry, go on.
No, guys, there's a certain arrogance in thinking, well, other people might not be able to hold it, but I can. And I think that's a very, very dangerous thing to hold. You know, because we can't, and that's why we need to be told what to do, because we don't have the judgment.
The analogy
and the
with
strength
dancing
to do it ourselves.
is you can't really kill somebody on a dance floor, bad as a dancer you might be.
But mind you, have you seen Storm dancing? That may be the case.
Alan from Cambridgeshire, what's your view on this? Do you think it doesn't really need to be reduced? People just need to be smarter about the decisions that they make.
I think agree with you that people need to be sensible. We are human beings at the end of the day, and these machines that the police test. Now, at the end of the day, if like you've said, you get stopped. Now, I know somebody in Bulgaria, because I had a property over there, and they had a car crash, no alcohol in their system whatsoever. But when they were stopped, the ambulance came, the police came, they breathalyzed them, and the person lost their licence. But when they did a blood test at the hospital, no alcohol in their system at all. The airbags had gone off, and that azide poisoning had given a false reading. Now, that was so unfair, but the European courts had to get involved to have that licence put back. Now, can you imagine someone's going down the road the next day, brushed their teeth this morning, brush their teeth in the morning, they get breath tested, police say, sorry, you failed. They have to go through all the court process to hospitals, have a blood test to prove they've got no alcohol in that system.
Alan,
the stress and the anguish.
It was a
So
defence I made
are these
early.
systems completely accurate?
Well, it was a defence I made earlier, and absolutely there are situations where people might get done for being over the limit when they haven't in fact had a drink at all in some situations. But should we reduce the limit so that you can't actually drink anything at a pub or for dinner and get in your car? But there is a slight limit there, which is sort of where we're at in Scotland with the 50 milligrams, where if you had your mouthwash in the morning or you've been taking medication with alcohol in it, you would still be under the threshold and it would be fine.
Well, not if you reduce the limit to nothing, because
no, this is
your
what I'm saying, Alan.
or your
or
your medication. I mean, I take medication, but it doesn't at the standard limits. You know, I was a car crash a little while ago. I had a breath test, perfectly fine, because I had no alcohol in my system. But even the medication didn't show up. But reducing that, could I have the assurance that my medication wouldn't come up?
I mean, it would need bigger brains than mine to try and work out the science behind it, Alan, but thank you very much for your call. Thank you very much for all your calls on this, actually. Sorry, did you want to make
I was just going to say to Alan, you were talking about the anguish of having to go through the not knowing and all the court procedure. The anguish is nothing compared to the anguish knowing that you have either damaged someone or killed someone, and that's what we're talking about.
OK, on that note, we're going to have to move on.